Hey Pioneers, welcome to episode number 464. Today we're going to be talking about kitchen time-saving meal prep hacks. All of us want to be able to get real food on the table for our families, but it can be a little bit difficult to do when we don't have a lot of extra time on our hands. And I know we all enter into those seasons. Sometimes those seasons last longer than others. So today we are back with another edition of the Homestead Kitchen Roundtable, sharing with you our best secrets. I want to share with you today our sponsor, Azure Standard. Azure, thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast. This is one of the ways that we are able to bring you the show almost every single week. Azure Standard is definitely what I use to help keep my pantry stocked so that I am able to implement a lot of the tips that you will hear today. They are one of our go-tos for pretty much everything we're not producing here on the homestead or don't have a super local source or way of getting. I highly recommend that you check them out, from your spice cabinet to condiments. I use them for our butter source. If you don't know, you can freeze butter. Butter freezes wonderfully. And so I make sure that my goal is to always have about 12 to 15 pounds of butter on hand. So that's something I usually restock quarterly, and I get it from Azure Standard, as we don't currently have our own dairy animal. And right now, with the cost of raw milk per gallon, it's actually cheaper for me to buy butter already churned than it is to purchase the raw milk, get the cream off in order to have enough to make the amount of butter that we use. Definitely check them out and use coupon code Melissa15 if you are a first-time customer, and get 15% off your first order of $100 or more. On to today's show. Welcome back to this month's edition of the Homestead Kitchen Roundtable. And I'm really excited for this one because this is where I feel like I've got a really good strategy down, but one can always use more tips and improve here. And that is how to get things done in the kitchen when you don't have a lot of time. Does anybody want to go first?
Oh, I'm excited about what I made last night.
Okay, Rachel just self-volunteered. She's going first.
So I just had taken out a bunch of ground meat. I had a ground chicken, ground beef, ground pork, and I thought, oh, I'm going to make a meatloaf. So I had so much out. I made a meatloaf for dinner last night, but then I have a six muffin tin pan, the big ones. So I made 6 small meatloafs to use for my lunches. So I just let those cool, popped them in the freezer. And so now it's easy for lunches for me and the kiddo that you just take them out. And I only dirtied 1 bowl, and that was it. And so now we have multiple meals off of just a little bit of prep time.
Yeah, for me, it's that. Here's the thing about batch cooking and prepping, because like what you did, Rachel, is, I want to say small scale, and not meaning that is an insult in any way. But I think a lot of times people see like YouTube videos or posts and it's like, make 20 meals in one day. And I think that's phenomenal and that has its place. But oftentimes, or maybe it's just me, I'm like, I don't even have that amount of space right now on weekends to do what is my normal batching. And even then I'm not doing like 10 or 20 meals at one go, but I'll do like the week's prep. And so I think it's more identifying the time that you have, no matter how little that is, and you can still do a small amount of batching and prep that will serve you, rather than being like, I don't have the time and space to do like even a whole day's worth, or maybe even like a whole afternoon of batching. So I'm just not going to do anything. I feel like maybe it's just my personality. A lot of times we tend to get stuck in kind of that all or nothing space instead of like, no, just work with where you're at right now. So I don't have my normal Sunday afternoons right now because Maddie is still doing her volleyball tournaments, and those are on Sunday, unfortunately. I mean, I love that she's doing the volleyball tournaments. Not thrilled they're on Sundays. So instead of being able to do my normal prep, we have just been doing, it's funny enough that you mentioned muffin tins though, Rachel, because that's what I've been using, is I've just been doing a bunch of egg cut muffin tins. And so I do 20 for the week, because if I use both the muffin tins that I have, those bad boys are filled up. It's a dozen eggs, whatever hodgepodge vegetables we've got laying around, maybe extra protein, some cheese, and just doing, whipping it all together with the eggs, like mass assembly. baking them, and then breakfast and or lunch is like done for the whole week. And right now I'm like, okay, that's really all I'm able to do as far as like on the batch day. That's all the space that we've got time for. But it's really handy, honestly, and at least it's something. So I don't know. Like, how do you are you guys, where are you guys with that?
Well, for me, it's not enough room in the freezer to do 20 meals. I've got it stocked with meat and other things, and I don't have that kind of space to put 20 meals in there. So if I make a meal, then I'll make an additional 2 or 3 off of that, and that'll get us through the next, week or two.
Yeah. Thanks for normalizing that, Melissa. Because when I first looked into batch cooking and watched all the YouTube videos, it was all these moms that put together like large trays of frozen food and stacked them beautifully and organized in the freezer. And it really intimidated me from getting it done that way. But I like to your point, cooking once and then eating twice. Like, for example, we do a lot of chicken. So I'll make chicken broth and recycle the chicken meat and turn it into like a chicken salad, or we can roast it and have, salad the next day. So we're getting a couple of dinners and meals from one hard, day of cooking.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I used to do, like, we would do a full weekend where we were making a bunch of freezer meals when Alexis was much younger. She was still in elementary school, which at the time was kind of necessary because we were both working full time. We had a 1-hour commute one way, so we spent a lot of time on the road. And, with a young kid, it's hard when you get home. It's at 6 o'clock in the evening already, and dinner's not even on the table yet. So freezer meals for us was really the answer to the problem. But now we don't have to do that. Although we do occasionally do some freezer meals, but we don't do nearly as many as we used to do. But we still do like slow cooker meals. Because, on the days that we know that we're going to be busy, it's easy to just quickly put it all together and hit on and let it cook all day. And then it's ready by the time you're ready for dinner. So, that's one of our favorite things to do, is just to use those tools that we have. Slow cooker, Instant Pot. I mean, we'll even use the sous vide to help us on those days that we forgot to get the meat out so it's not thawed. So that really helps too.
Yeah. I think for me is just working in those like little pockets of time. I mean, I use this for the kitchen, and really I think it's the way that I manage the whole household, because very rarely do I even have like a full hour, quite honestly, to devote to something, but I can usually find like this 10-minute pocket or something like that. And so it's kind of working in stages, but just like in those small stages. And sometimes, yes, like I am working from home. So it's like, okay, I've got, I'm out of this meeting, or I'm off of this interview. And so I've got this pocket of time to go do that. If you're not working at home, that's like, Michelle, to your point, when like, yes, it was absolutely using that Instant Pot or the slow cooker or those types of things that were really the hands off. And you can still employ them. But I found one of the things that I have found really helpful is, even in the really busy seasons, like I don't know necessarily what we're having for dinner 4 nights from now, but as long as I just know what we're going to have for dinner the next day. But if I wait until that day, that's when things get really chaotic, and then you make not the decisions that you would make, but that you would like to make, that end up just being like, oh gosh, here we are. So I've just found if I just know the day before, plan like what we're having for dinner that next night, or even just looking like, okay, like if I did shredded chicken in the Instant Pot because I did not thaw it last night, and I'm like, okay, we still have quite a bit left, but maybe not quite like for an entire meal. So I'm going to cook 2 extra sides, and I've got sourdough bread that I'm stretching and folding that'll just be a one-dayer that I'll bake right at dinner time. But I know, like, if I have that protein, I feel like then I can easily start to bring in the other things to make it enough. And even if it's just the day before, like right now in the season I'm at, that's kind of where it's at. I'm like, usually I like to be 2 to 3 days ahead. Right now I'm like, okay, as long as I got tomorrow, we're good.
Well, I think having so many things fermented and canned and dehydrated and freeze dried, really you only have to remember to take the protein out of the freezer or whatever you're going to do, and have it so you can go from there. And then you just pull from that is the big thing. That's the big part, remembering that. And if you don't, there's the Instapot and the slow cooker.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. One of the things that I like to do is go grocery shopping in the freezer. So just pulling out the protein for the week and then letting it thaw in the fridge. And to your point, Rachel, just the kids, we all eat something fermented at every meal, even if it's just a little bit of sauerkraut or kimchi. It's honestly the biggest hack too, like making sure that they have vegetables. And also where we're at, we don't always have access to really good, clean, like organic vegetables. So when we do have that, it makes life so much easier than when we were living in the city.
Well, and so much of the fermented, like if you want a salad, as long as you have greens out in the garden, whether they be hardy greens, kale, whatever, or if you've got microgreens or lettuce, and you have fermented vegetables of any kind, I just throw that on salad and it really stretches it.
That's a good idea.
That's how I get the husband to eat it, Michelle.
I like
He
it.
covers it in salad dressing.
Okay, so I'm not so much a salad dressing girl, but man, cheese is like my go-to. So I'm giggling because I'll take like whatever, like protein wise. This is what we did last night. Like I got the protein done, and that was about as far as we made it. And so I just took the protein, and you could put it on like greens if you have it, or even ferments protein, and then just melt cheese on top. Oh my goodness. Like it tastes like this awesome bowl. And it's super easy and fast. I mean, and that was like, I didn't have rice prepped. Like I wasn't even following a lot of my own things, but I'm like, all right, we can just make some layered stuff here. Like had I had some rice, we could have done like a rice and bean bowl or something like that. But I love that because the ferment just kind of, they add that extra flavor.
They do.
Level and depth, along with obviously the health part as well.
I thought of you last night because I put cheese in the meatloaf, Melissa.
Oh.
Because, you know, Carl, he loves the cheese too. He was pretty excited. That was a nice surprise.
Cheese just makes everything. It's like bacon and butter and cheese. Like those are my three. Like, yeah, life is good when those, especially when all three are involved.
You know, another thing that it's always worth doing is having a list of those really quick, easy meals that your family likes, and making sure that you have the ingredients on hand all the time. Like my family will just eat like a refried bean Mexican bowl. It's just rice and beans and some salsa and whatever else we want to put in there. But we always have the refried beans. We have rice, and it doesn't take that long to cook rice. So that's a really quick meal, but you still have your protein, you still have your vegetables and your grain.
And you put your cheese on it. So
yeah, exactly.
Little ferment, like we got a little fermented salsa or curtido. Exactly. Like life is good. I have to say, and it's the spices. Like if I've got, which I mean we do now because I just buy them in bulk. Like if you've got all your different spices and herbs, like seasonings, you can take that base bean rice protein and you can make it whatever flavor or flair you want, but it adds a lot of variety without having to stock a ton of like perishables or really learning like all these different recipes. Because I feel like you can take kind of those base ingredients and whatever spices you put in there totally changes the flavor of the dish.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I do like having, like I always have canned tomato sauce, or I always grow tomatillos and do a verde sauce. So you can always change that. And with tomato sauce, if you don't season it before you can it, you can add anything you want to it. That's the beauty of that.
I agree.
Yeah. I do a lot of different spice-inspired fried rice. So like turmeric, I'll put some turmeric into the fried rice or the rice, and cumin sometimes. And it makes it different. It makes it a lot different when you're adding it as not like a condiment, but a side dish to like the main protein.
Yeah.
And instead of just plain rice. So that's kind of like a good way to introduce new flavors. And turmeric's really good for you. So it's good we talked about it last month, which is sneaking nutrition and vitamins and minerals to the family.
Yeah. And even like smoked variations of spices. I think we might have talked about this last month too, but like the smoked paprika instead of regular paprika, or even a smoked sea salt, like it just adds a whole new thing. I mean, and the same is true of like, even with roots, you know, like if you roast roots, the flavor profile versus just boiled.
Yes.
I think we all agree boiled vegetables is not the best.
No, no, I'm like, almost should be outlawed, but yes. There's very few vegetables I prefer boiled. I usually much prefer other cooking methods on vegetables than boiling. But
Agree.
being like new spices or new seasonings, because I always think it's kind of fun to try new ones too. One I have not personally used is saffron. Have any of you guys use saffron?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We make saffron rice a lot.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So
I
that's
love it.
my new one that I want to play with. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's very pretty too.
Mhm.
it's very good for you.
Is it okay? I'm just gonna sound, and I'm fine sounding like the person who doesn't know something about something. Is saffron, because it's got that bright color? I'm like, but
It's the stamens from crocus flower,
Crocus. Yeah.
like crocus that come up in the springtime, purple and white. It's the
Yeah?
inside yellow stamens from crocus.
really?
It's a specific one. It's not like the ones you buy, you know, at the garden store, but it's a specific one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's why it's so expensive, because imagine going along and picking those in a row, how long that would take, and then drying them. They're so tiny already. That's why it's so expensive.
And I
that
think
is
there's only
labor-intensive.
And I think there's only 3 stamens per flower.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's a lot of work.
That's why
I
it's
wonder
so
if they
expensive.
would grow in our climate.
I grow standard crocus. I'd imagine that culinary
But-
would grow fine too. You just have to find the actual corms.
Right. Yeah.
We'll get on that.
I probably should cook with it first to make sure I like it, but I'm already like, let's grow it ourselves. This is why I have no extra time in a day. Well, I am doing sourdough today, but I really love having the master dough. I mean, master dough is something that I used goodnight probably for like 15 years. And it's just so versatile and works its way into being so many different things. Like, I don't know how a kitchen functions without having the master dough, so for anybody who's listening and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's basically where you take a dough and you're creating this dough. It's a fairly simple dough. But we're calling it a master dough because you're making a master amount, meaning you can pull, it's enough to make like 3 loaves or 2 to 3 different recipes, depending on what you're making and the size of that. But it can be turned into so many different items from just this one dough. So if you're newer to baking, especially like bread baking, it's really great because you're just having to master learning this one dough instead of there's, you know, so like there's sandwich bread. There's so many different doughs when it comes to baking, and then you're learning what's the feel for each one of these, etc. And so this one allows you to just really get it down. But the beauty of it is you're not stuck with just making this same loaf of bread over and over and over again, because you can take it and you can turn it into a sandwich loaf. You can turn it into cinnamon rolls. You can I mean, there's so many things that you can just turn this one basic dough in. So it's a master dough for multiple different reasons. But it's also fantastic because you make up this batch of dough and then it will sit in the fridge up to 14 days and still perform, meaning it's chilled. So it's doing this really long, basically cold proofing, hibernating in the fridge because of the cold temperatures. And then you can pull it out as you need it and just bake something, fresh right then and there. And it's just the prep if you're having to shape it into something, and then your bake time. So it really is a lifesaver as far as like time efficiency, especially when you're super busy. But I also think it's great for people who are newer to baking because of that reason. It's figuring out and getting really good at this one dough before moving on. I think it's a good foundation.
Well, and it's so good for like seasons in life. Right now with me, I do sourdough master dough. I always have it in the fridge, and it doesn't hold up as long. You start to get hooch after 5 or 6 days, but it gets me through the week. And that's, pizza and hamburger buns and bread and everything. and it is so much easier. I love to do all kinds of baking, but when you don't have the time, it is the perfect fit.
I agree. And both of those are inside our baking courses and our sourdough courses that are part of the Pioneering Today Academy as well.
Well, and I know, Michelle, you've batched some other baking items too. Remind me.
Yeah. So we do, when we make waffles or pancakes, we will at least double the recipe. Sometimes we'll triple it and then freeze the extra, which works out really well. Ralph likes to have those before, for breakfast during the week, on the days that he works from home. So that's one thing that we do for baking. Another thing that we do, it's not baking related, but we make up a bunch of breakfast burritos. So we will make up a couple pounds of sausage, and it's like 2.5 dozens of eggs. We'll scramble those up. And of course you have to have the cheese in there. We roll it up, we wrap it up, and then just pop in the freezer. And then he has breakfast burritos to eat on his way to work. So it's something that he can actually hold while he's driving.
So how do you reheat? What do you recommend to people?
I don't normally do it anymore. But so I think he normally puts it in the microwave, still in the plastic, and I want to say like 30 seconds. He flips it 30 until it's like heated all the way through. Because if you don't do it long enough, then the center is still cold.
Right, but you could do it in the oven, or you could do it in a pan if you wanted it a little crispy.
Yeah.
And then do you do like my pancakes and waffles? I'll do in the toaster oven. Do you do yours that way, or the toaster?
Yeah.
It's just a homemade Eggo.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
nobody wants a soggy waffle or pancake.
No, exactly.
No.
Great. Now I have to go get a toaster oven.
You can just use a regular toaster. It doesn't have to be the oven. Like just the old.
Or a toaster.
I don't use a toaster. Okay. I know what to get you for Christmas.
Sophie's out over the open fire with her waffle on a stick.
I do a lot of things over like a skillet. But yeah, no, that's a really good point. I never thought about batch making the pancakes and waffles, because whenever I make them, the kids can never wait long enough anyway. So they just fly off whenever I do a double batch, and I don't think about doing more because it takes me a long time to wait for it. And it's a lot of skillets going on at the same time to flip. I don't look forward to it. But what I do love doing is the sourdough pizza crusts and making batches of that, because like we can really save a lot of time on busy days. Like the kids can make their own from scratch. They can just grab it from the freezer, pop open some pizza, the pizza sauce, and then we got cheese and whatever leftovers proteins. There's always some leftover protein in the fridge, whether it's like ground beef or something, but just toss it in there. They can do it themselves. Like it's really nice. That is a lifesaver. But I need to master dough, like sourdough master dough.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah, I use master dough all the time, especially for pizza.
Yeah, sourdough pizza crust is my favorite.
And what's so nice about it, if you just get a hankering because you need some carbs, you can just make rolls really fast.
That's true. In fact, that was one thing Clay texted me last night. He's like, what do we have to go with the chicken that you're making? He's like, do we have bread? I'm like, no, I'm baking bread tomorrow, but there are some leftover tortillas. So if you want bread with yours, there's some tortillas. You'll have bread with tomorrow's dinner. So yeah, it is nice though to having the ability to do the master dough, like whatever variation, or like with the pizzas, but that ability, like the carb part, right? It does stretch it too, which is really nice. Like that's when I'm like, ooh, there's not quite enough. I don't want to cook an entire brand new meal. Like how do we push and I think that's time saving too, not having to prepare an entire brand new meal, like where you're cooking every single item of it from scratch that night.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, all of us should be a little bit more efficient in the kitchen now and getting a little bit more done with these tips. So thank you, ladies. And I can't wait till we have our next episode next month. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And if you would like more tips on running an efficient kitchen while doing food preservation, I invite you to join our crash course. I am doing a free 5-day kitchen efficiency and crash course, sharing with you all of my tips in order to get food preserved and have your kitchen running smoothly and efficiently without cutting any safety corners. You can sign up at melissaknorris.com/crash. And it begins on May 6th. We're going to be going live for 5 days in a row with incredible giveaway opportunities, live Q&As, and a ton of learning so that you can get your kitchen in tip-top shape and get your pantry stocked over the summer months when there is fresh produce to be had. I hope to see you there. Again, go to melissaknorris.com/crash and snag your free seat.